She asked me the question while slicing into her dinner like it was just another Tuesday night. Why are you silent? The knife in her hand caught the light, and for a second, it felt like I was the one under the blade. I stared at her, my fork hovering above my plate, and all I could manage was, because. No explanation. No excuse. Just that one word. The truth is, silence was safer than what I really wanted to say. Safer than screaming about what I saw last Thursday when I left work early. I was supposed to surprise her with flowers. I ended up standing frozen in the middle of the street, watching her through the cafe window, leaning across the table toward a man I'd never seen before. She laughed. No, not just laughed. She laughed the way she used to with me when life still felt like ours. Since then, I've been living with this strange, buzzing emptiness in my chest. Every time she smiles at me now, I can't tell if it's real or just muscle memory. I keep asking myself if I'm imagining all of this, if maybe I'm just losing my mind, because the alternative, the truth, feels like swallowing glass. Tonight, though, she looks too calm, too comfortable. She doesn't ask what's wrong like a caring wife would. She asks it like she already knows I'm coming apart, like she's waiting for me to snap and confess what I've been digging through my head all week. Maybe she's testing me, trying to see how much I know. But I'm tired of pretending I don't notice the lies wrapped around her late night, work calls, or the way her phone never leaves her side, even when she showers. I'm tired of pretending I don't smell a stranger's cologne clinging to her jacket. I almost told her everything right there at the table. I almost said, because I know where you were, Lena. But instead, I just stared, my hands trembling, and whispered, because. She didn't flinch. She just smiled, slow, deliberate, and it scared me more than any words could. After I said because, she tilted her head slightly. Her fork paused in midair, and that slow, deliberate smile spread across her lips again. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind of smile people give when they know something you don't, like she was holding all the cards and daring me to ask the wrong question. My stomach twisted. I'd seen that look once before, years ago, on a stranger's face at a poker table when I lost half my paycheck on a single bad bet. That was exactly how I felt now, like I was betting on a hand I already knew would lose. The room felt too quiet, like the silence itself was pressing down on me, demanding that I say something. Anything. But my throat felt like it was filled with sand. I glanced at her wine glass, half empty, the rim stained with her lipstick. I remembered when I used to love watching her drink red wine, how her lips looked against the glass. Now the sight made my skin crawl, because that same shade of lipstick had been smudged across a napkin in that cafe last week, across from that man. He wasn't a stranger anymore. His face haunted me now. Because why? She asked finally, setting her fork down with a soft clink. She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms like this was some interrogation she was determined to win. The way she looked at me, I almost laughed. Almost. Did she really not know what I'd seen? Or was she just testing me, waiting for me to say it out loud so she could twist it into something else? In my head, I was screaming. I was screaming about how I followed her car one night, heart pounding, and how I saw her parked 2 blocks away from home just to sit in her car, talking to someone on the phone. She was smiling, her head tilted back, her hand brushing her hair in that way she only did when she wanted someone to notice her. It wasn't me she was talking to. I waited there for 20 minutes, hiding like a coward, gripping my steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted her to come home and tell me I was crazy, that I was just paranoid. But she didn't. And now, here we were, sitting at the dinner table, pretending to be husband and wife, while I tried not to break apart in front of her. My chest felt like it was going to cave in when she leaned forward and whispered, "Caleb, are you hiding something from me?" The question almost made me laugh. Me? Hiding something? I wanted to throw my plate across the room and shout, "What about you, Lena? What are you hiding?" But instead, I just stared at her, my jaw locked. Because the truth is, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to hear her admit what I already know. I'm not ready to hear her say his name. And deep down, I'm terrified that if I open my mouth, I'll lose her forever, even though I might have already lost her. But I'm not stupid. I'm not staying silent forever. I have a plan now. That night, after she went upstairs to shower, I stayed at the table, staring at my untouched dinner until the pasta turned cold and hard. I kept hearing her question over and over. Why are you silent? Like it was stuck on repeat in my head. She had no idea that my silence wasn't weakness anymore. It was the only weapon I had left. If I spoke too soon, she'd twist the story, or worse, she'd leave before I had a chance to know the full truth. And I needed to know. I needed to catch her without doubt, without the possibility of her wriggling out of it with another sweet lie. When I finally dragged myself upstairs, she was brushing her hair in front of the mirror. She looked perfect, almost glowing, like nothing was wrong. She asked me about work, about whether I'd taken out the trash, like we were still playing the roles of husband and wife. I mumbled something and went to bed, pretending to be tired. But my mind was burning. The plan started small. The first thing I did was memorize her routines, what time she left for work, how long her gym sessions lasted, which nights she stayed late to catch up on reports. I wasn't trying to catch her in a lie just yet. I just wanted to see if her story cracked on its own. But everything she did seemed too carefully rehearsed, as if she was reading from a script. That's when I decided to take it further. I installed a small tracker on her car keychain. Something cheap, nothing fancy, but enough to tell me where she was when I couldn't follow her. The first night I checked, I sat in my car outside the grocery store, hands sweating on the steering wheel, watching the little blinking dot on my phone. And it didn't move. Not for 2 hours. She'd told me she was working late, but the tracker said she was parked near an apartment building downtown. I didn't have the courage to drive there and see for myself. I just sat there like an idiot, staring at the screen, feeling my stomach drop. The next day, I started checking her phone when she showered. She's careful, too careful, but I still found pieces. A hidden gallery folder with photos that didn't make sense. Not of him, not yet, but of random places, a cafe table, the inside of a car, a hotel hallway. Who takes pictures like that? When I asked her about her day that evening, she smiled and said it was busy as usual, and I felt something snap inside me. I'm not built for this. I'm not the strong, silent type who can shrug it off or walk away. I'm the kind of man who obsesses, who lies awake at 2 a.m., scrolling through every clue like a detective who's one step away from losing his mind. I can't stop picturing her hands on someone else's shoulders, her laugh spilling out in ways it hasn't for me in years. And every time I think about it, I feel smaller, like I'm disappearing. But something strange happened 2 nights ago. I was going through her purse when I found a receipt for a fancy restaurant we'd never been to. The total was obscene, and next to her signature was something scribbled in pen. Next time, same table? My heart pounded, but then I saw something else, a room key. A hotel room key. It was tucked behind her wallet like a secret she never thought I'd find. I didn't ask. I didn't throw it in her face. I just slid it back exactly where I found it. Because I'm not confronting her yet. I'm going to that hotel. I'm going to find out exactly what's waiting for me on the other side of that door. The hotel key burned a hole in my pocket for 2 days before I found the courage to use it. I carried it with me everywhere. At work, in the car, even when I slept with my hand under my pillow like some desperate child afraid of monsters. The difference was, I knew the monster was real. It was just wearing my wife's face. Every time she smiled at me during those 2 days, I felt that key pressing against my leg, reminding me that I was only steps away from the truth. And maybe I was too much of a coward to find it. On the 3rd night, she told me she had to stay late again. New project deadline, she said, dropping a casual kiss on my cheek before grabbing her bag. I waited 5 minutes, then grabbed my jacket and left. The drive to the hotel was silent, but my mind was screaming. What if I found her there with him? What if I walked into something I could never unsee? And the most terrifying thought of all, what if I found nothing? What if this was all just in my head, and I'd become the paranoid husband who destroys his own marriage chasing ghosts? The hotel wasn't what I expected. It wasn't flashy or romantic. It was one of those clean, soulless business hotels with fake smiles at the front desk and generic artwork on the walls. I parked across the street, my fingers clenched around the key card like it was a weapon. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might faint before even stepping inside. Room 607. That was the number written in faded pen on the back of the key card. I took the elevator, every second feeling heavier, like I was sinking into my own shoes. When the doors opened, the hallway stretched out, too quiet, carpet muffling every step. I stood outside the door for a long time, just staring. I could hear something faint, music maybe, or a TV, but I wasn't sure. When I finally slid the key into the lock, my hand was trembling so badly I almost dropped it. The green light flashed. I turned the handle. The room smelled like expensive perfume mixed with something unfamiliar, something sharp. I stepped inside, every nerve in my body screaming. There were clothes scattered on the floor, but not hers, men's clothes. A watch on the nightstand. A half-empty glass of whiskey next to it. I froze, waiting for someone to appear from the bathroom or behind the door. But the room was empty. And then I saw it. On the desk, under a small stack of papers. A photo. A photo of Lena, but not like I'd ever seen her before. Her smile was different, sharper, almost cold. Next to her was the man I'd seen at the cafe, his hand on her back like he owned her. And there was writing across the photo in thick black marker, "See you soon." Same place. I don't remember leaving the room. I don't even remember getting back to my car. All I know is I drove home with my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the wheel. I didn't want to confront her yet. Not until I had more. Not until I knew everything. But that night, I realized something that scared me even more than the affair itself. There's something about him, about the way he looks at her in those photos, that feels wrong. Not just like he's with her, but like he's controlling her. Like I'm missing something bigger. And I swear, when Lena came home later and kissed me goodnight, she smelled like that same sharp cologne I'd noticed in the hotel room. I barely slept that night. I kept staring at the ceiling, my mind spinning with every possible scenario. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the photo on that hotel desk, the way his hand rested on her back like he'd done it 1,000 times, the way her smile wasn't the Lena I knew. It was almost like she wasn't herself, like she was playing a role for him. That thought haunted me. If she could fake a smile like that, how many times had she faked everything with me? By morning, I was running on 2 hours of sleep and too much caffeine, but I didn't care. I needed answers, and I wasn't waiting for her to give them to me. While she was still asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with her phone in my hand, my palms sweating like I was holding a live bomb. I knew her password. Of course I did, but I hesitated before unlocking it. What if I found something I couldn't unsee? What if I found nothing and realized I was destroying my own life for nothing? But I didn't hesitate for long. The first thing I saw was a text thread, hidden under a fake contact name, Megan. I almost laughed at how pathetic that attempt was. I opened it, my heart pounding, and there it was, room 607. Thursday. Same time. That was sent just 2 days ago. The last message was from him. "You looked perfect last night. Next time, wear the red dress." I felt my throat tighten as I read it. My Lena, my wife, was dressing up for someone else while I sat at home, waiting for her like a fool. But what froze me wasn't just the texts, it was a voice note. I didn't even realize you could hide those like this. With shaking hands, I played it. It was him. His voice was low, smooth, and way too confident. "You know what I want next time? Don't make me wait. You know what happens if you do?" I almost dropped the phone. There was something in his tone, something that didn't sound like love or even lust. It sounded like control, like a threat. I replayed it over and over, trying to make sense of it, but every time I heard his voice, it made my stomach twist. Who the hell was this guy? Was Lena with him because she wanted to be, or because she had to be? When she finally woke up and walked into the kitchen, I hid the phone under a pile of mail and pretended to be reading something on my laptop. She smiled, kissed the top of my head, and asked if I'd slept well. I wanted to laugh. Instead, I just nodded. But when she turned around to make coffee, I saw her slip her phone out of her bag and check something quickly, almost nervously, before locking it again. That's when I realized I couldn't just sit here anymore, waiting for the truth to fall into my lap. I needed to know who this man was, and why Lena looked so different when she was with him. So that afternoon, while she was out, I made a decision that I knew would change everything. I called in sick to work. I drove back to that hotel, parked across the street, and waited. My plan was simple: follow her next time she went there. Follow her, and maybe follow him too. But what I didn't expect was to find a clue before she even showed up. I went into the lobby, pretending I was just checking rates for a future business trip, and casually asked if anyone had left something behind in room 607. The clerk looked at me suspiciously, but then she said, "Actually, yes. A black envelope was turned in yesterday." She handed it to me, no questions asked. Inside was a single photo of me, taken from across the street while I was getting into my car. And on the back, written in the same black marker as the hotel photo, were the words, "Stop looking." My hands went cold. He knew I was watching. When I saw that photo of myself inside the black envelope, My first reaction wasn't anger, it was fear. My knees actually went weak, and for a second, I thought I might drop right there in the middle of the hotel lobby. Whoever this man was, he wasn't just seeing Lena. He was watching me too. It felt like a line had been crossed, like I wasn't just dealing with a cheating wife anymore. This was something bigger, something darker, and I couldn't tell where it ended. I shoved the envelope under my jacket and left, nodding politely to the clerk as if my world hadn't just tilted sideways. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the photo. The image was grainy, taken from a distance, but it was clearly me. The way my body was angled, the way my hand was on the car door, it wasn't just some random snapshot. This was deliberate. A warning. Whoever he was, he wanted me to know I was being watched, maybe to scare me into stopping. But the thing is, I've never been good at stopping when I should. I'm stubborn, maybe even pathetic, but the moment someone tells me, don't look, I want to rip the truth out with my bare hands. That night, Lena came home late again. She smelled faintly of his cologne, that sharp, unfamiliar scent that made my stomach churn. I wanted to grab her shoulders, shake her, demand to know what was going on. But instead, I played the coward once more. I sat on the couch, pretended to be half asleep, and murmured something about how my day had been fine. She gave me a distracted smile and disappeared into the bathroom, humming a tune I didn't recognize. I stared at her reflection in the hallway mirror as she walked past, and I swear to God, she looked like someone else entirely. Not my Lena. Someone colder. Someone distant. The next day, I put my plan into action. I took the tracker from her keychain and slipped it into her handbag instead. That way, even if she switched cars or took a cab, I'd know where she was going. I didn't go to work. I parked down the street and waited like some desperate private investigator in a bad movie. Around 7 p.m., she left the house in that red dress he had mentioned in the text. My throat tightened. She had never worn it for me. I followed her from a distance, my heart pounding so loudly I could barely think straight. She didn't go straight to the hotel this time. She stopped at a convenience store first, walked out with a small black bag, and drove to a part of town I hadn't been to in years. I stayed 2 cars behind, my hands gripping the steering wheel, every nerve in my body screaming that I was about to see something I wouldn't be able to forget. When she parked near a narrow alley, my stomach dropped. This wasn't some fancy dinner or romantic meeting place. It looked like the kind of place you only go if you don't want to be found. I watched from my car as she got out and met him, a tall man in a dark jacket, his face partially hidden by a baseball cap. Even from a distance, I could feel the way he owned the space around him. He didn't just hug her, he grabbed her like she belonged to him. She didn't resist. She didn't even glance around to see if anyone was watching. I was about to get out of my car and confront them when something stopped me. He handed her something, an envelope, just like the one I found. She glanced at it, nodded, and slipped it into her bag. This wasn't just some affair. This looked like a transaction. My mind went wild with questions. Was he blackmailing her? Was she paying him? Was she in some kind of trouble I didn't even know about? Before I could make sense of it, they both walked into a building at the end of the alley. The door closed, and I sat there for 15 minutes, my heart racing, debating whether to follow. Every instinct screamed that if I walked through that door, my life would never be the same. I grabbed the door handle anyway. The metal handle was ice cold against my palm, like the building itself was warning me not to enter. I hesitated, my breath fogging in the night air as I tried to gather enough courage to step forward. Through the grimy glass window of the door, I could barely make out a long corridor dimly lit by a flickering fluorescent bulb. I pushed the door open slowly, its creak sounding like a gunshot in the stillness. Every nerve in my body screamed that I was about to make a mistake, but my legs moved anyway, carrying me inside. The building smelled of mildew and something faintly metallic, like rust or blood. I crept down the hallway, following the faint sound of voices echoing off the concrete walls. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would give me away. I stopped near a half-open door at the end of the corridor, and that's when I heard her laugh. Lena's laugh. But it wasn't the warm, soft laugh I knew. It was sharper, almost forced, like someone performing a role they didn't want to play. I leaned closer, just enough to catch a glimpse through the gap in the door. The room inside was nothing like I expected. It wasn't romantic or intimate. It looked more like a meeting room, with a cheap table in the center and papers scattered across it. Lena sat on one side, her red dress glowing against the harsh white light above, while the man with the cap sat across from her, his posture rigid, his hands resting on a black folder. There was no wine, no candlelight, no trace of anything resembling love. This wasn't an affair, it was a negotiation. "I don't have all of it yet," Lena said, her voice trembling. "You have to give me more time." The man leaned forward, his tone calm but heavy. "Time's running out, Lena. You know the deal. If you don't deliver, it won't just be you paying the price." My stomach turned cold. I didn't understand what he meant, but the threat in his voice was unmistakable. She nodded quickly, biting her lip like a cornered animal. For the first time, I didn't feel angry at her. I felt scared for her. What the hell had she gotten herself into? I was so focused on their conversation that I didn't notice the shadow moving in the hallway behind me until it was too late. A hand clamped down on my shoulder, hard. I spun around, my pulse exploding in my ears, and found myself face to face with another man, tall, muscular, wearing a black jacket that made him look like security. His eyes narrowed as he glanced at the half-open door and then back at me. "Lost?" he asked, his voice low and unfriendly. I stammered something about looking for the restroom, but his grip on my shoulder tightened. He didn't believe me for a second. He glanced at my jacket, then down at my shaking hands. He knew I didn't belong there. Before I could think, I shoved him hard and bolted down the hallway. My shoes pounded against the concrete floor as I sprinted out of the building and into the night air. I didn't look back until I was in my car with the doors locked and the engine running. My chest was heaving, my hands trembling so badly that I could barely hold the steering wheel. What the hell was happening? This wasn't just cheating. Lena wasn't just sneaking around with another man. She was in something dangerous, something that had people watching me, threatening her, and leaving photos of me in hotel rooms like some sick warning. That night, as I sat alone in my car outside our house, I realized something terrifying. I couldn't just confront her anymore. If I did, I might not just lose her, I might end up in real danger. But I also couldn't pretend I didn't know. Not after seeing her sitting there with that man, looking like a stranger I couldn't save. When I finally walked into the house, she was already home, sitting on the couch like nothing had happened. She smiled at me, asked if I wanted dinner. I looked at her, trying to read her face, and for the first time, I didn't see my wife. I saw someone who was hiding something so deep, it scared me to my core. And I knew I had to find out exactly what it was, no matter what it cost me. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of the bed while Lena slept soundly next to me, her breathing steady and calm, as if nothing in the world could touch her. My mind was spinning with every word I had heard, every warning, every moment where I'd been too afraid to ask her the truth. But something changed in me then. I realized that I couldn't keep running away from it. I couldn't keep hiding behind my silence. I needed to know, once and for all, who she really was, even if the truth broke me. The next morning, I didn't sneak around. I didn't check her phone or follow her car. Instead, I sat her down at the kitchen table and told her everything. About the hotel room, about the tracker, about the photo of me in the envelope. My voice shook, but I didn't care. For the first time in weeks, I felt honest. She stared at me as I spoke, her face pale, her hands trembling slightly as I laid it all out. I expected her to scream, to deny everything, to twist the story like I feared she would. But she didn't. She just cried. It turns out, I had been wrong about almost everything. The man wasn't her lover. He was someone from her past. Years ago, before we met, she had made a mistake, gotten involved with people she shouldn't have, and now one of them was trying to pull her back into that old life. The red dress, the meetings, the envelopes, it was all part of her trying to keep him away from me. She didn't want me to know because she was ashamed, terrified that I'd see her differently. I didn't know what to say at first. Part of me was relieved. Part of me furious that she hadn't trusted me enough to tell me sooner. But as I looked at her, really looked at her, I realized I didn't care about the past. I cared about us. I cared about the woman sitting in front of me, the woman I almost lost because I was too afraid to ask the right questions. We decided to go to the police that afternoon. She handed over the messages, the photos, everything. They told us they'd take care of it. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. That night, we sat on the couch together, holding hands like we hadn't in years. It felt real. It felt like we'd gone to the edge and come back stronger. Later, as we ate dinner, she looked at me with that familiar warmth in her eyes and asked softly, Why are you smiling? I met her gaze and said, because. This time, it wasn't silence. It was the truth. We're still healing, still rebuilding the trust that got shaken, but I know one thing now. She's worth every ounce of fear, every sleepless night, every ounce of pain. And for the first time in what feels like forever, I don't feel like a fool. I feel like her husband again.